Hello. um, a few minutes, let our friends know that we are live. And looking up there at my bajillion tabs for my Twitch tab to update them. Like, where to go? um, we have Hank back. It's been a minute since we've had you. Um, you're a busy guy.
Yeah, a little bit here and
See?
there. Comes in waves.
um, I saw, in your social media that you are getting ready to do some tuning fork training for people.
Yeah, what I found out is the new space that I'm in that has a barber that he's not there at all on Sundays anymore. So now I actually have 1 day a week where it's really quiet, and I'm going to be able to rotate through the different tuning fork classes and things like that. So looking forward to that. And if people are watching this and you're interested in that, let us know in the comments like what tuning fork set you would like to maybe learn first, because I have like literally 600 of them in my office. So
Oh
it's
my
like kind of hard to
gosh.
think like out of all these forks. I know this is why me and Melissa are separated by like a city now, because she's like I was still too noisy on the other side of the wall. She's like, you got to get yourself like out of here.
Like, I can still hear you, Hank. Go another street over. So noisy, noisy, noisy. Um,
No, what I really should do is start with the forks that are available at Goddess Elite, because you have a couple of the different fork sets I carry, like the chakra tuning fork set and some of the like the ohm fork and things like that. So maybe that would be a good one to start with.
could be, yeah. And I know we
And all
talked
this, yeah.
some sound healing on a previous episode, but
Yeah.
I think if we did some in depth and do some classes, and that would be fun. That would be fun. Well, as our friends are coming in, welcome everybody to another episode of the Healer's Corner. We have Hank back with us. Tonight's topic, going over spiritual healing and addiction. And Hank is so very kind to share his journey on both of those. Hank, I don't know how much you want me to start in. I feel like since it's your story, maybe you should tell us your
Well,
story. Like, how did you get
I'll
there?
I'll give kind of like the cliff notes, and then we can dive deeper, depending on questions or how you want to lead the conversation. But I have been intuitive my whole life. I came in like totally on, possibly because of a near death experience at childbirth. And that was fine for a while, like up until like middle school and high school. And then all of a sudden, like things got really intense because as an empath and intuitive, like emotions, like you got hormones going, they have all kinds of different things happening. And I started to have like a lot of anger built up and different things like that. And then as soon as I could legally drink, I was like, let's medicate this. Maybe even a little bit before I could legally drink. But I literally became a daily drinker from like day one. As soon as I could legally drink it, I was drinking. And then it's a progressive disease, if you will. And just slowly over time, I drink more, drink more, drink more. And then add into the fact that I was in a long distance relationship. My wife now, Anya, she was in Germany. So like on top of that, like there was like situational depression, and I was also trying to make like the voices in my head like go away because I knew stuff and I didn't want to know stuff. But the funny thing is, with alcohol you drink and it numbs you out, but like you still have all the awarenesses. It still be like going into the body, and you may still be influenced by different spirits, like cause spirits that we talk about in the shamanic tradition. And fast forward, I finally got to it was literally about, I think, a month or so before Anya was going to move here, that I ended up having an emotional breakdown at the bank. And I ended up with a consultation and then put into IOP, which is intensive outpatient program for dual diagnosis, basically depression plus alcohol abuse. And even then, though, I thought I just have an abuse issue. Like I just am mismanaging my drinking a little bit. I'm sure I'll be able to drink eventually. And when I went to Germany, I had to literally split uh, my sobriety. I had to split my rehab in half. And I go to Germany, and I'm like, there's no meetings in Germany. And like a guy who I met at a meeting who who knew I was going to be in Germany. There were no meetings. He just gave me these little CDs, and he's like, "Well, these really help. Maybe you can listen to them while you're in Germany. You don't have meetings." And because there was only one meeting a month in her town, and it was all in German. So like even if I wanted to go to a meeting or something while I was in Germany, picking her up to bring her back to the states, wouldn't have been beneficial anyway. So I'm just listening to these CDs, and I'm still thinking I am not an alcoholic or whatnot. And Paul Fisher, who did this big book workshop based on how AA first started, it was called Back to Basics. Like back when AA first started, it was like 4 1-hour information sessions before you'd even go to a meeting. And I'm listening to step one, and he's asking all these questions. And then the one that nailed me, and in that moment I had like my true, like, oh my gosh, this is like really my a problem that I have. He said, "So now, based on your experience, are you an alcoholic?" And this was a buildup of all these questions leading up to it. And that's when I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's when I knew like I could never pick up a drink again. Now, the first month, first year actually of that was just like white knuckling. I was sober, but I was what they call a dry drunk. And I wasn't doing any inner work. And I'm just basically like, if someone was drinking around me, I was freaking out. I cut out everything in my life that could lead to like like gaming. Like I was playing poker, I was playing War of Warcraft and drinking and playing, like all that stuff I cut out because of the possibility of relapse. But on my 1 year sobriety date, which was March of 2007, I believe, uh, I went to a 12-step weekend, and I actually started doing my inner work. And by inner work, basically it means fine tuning the instrument. Like you have a soul that is just trying to manifest through this experience on Earth, right? And you do all kinds of things to block yourself off from the communication with your higher self, with the divine, and all that. And inner work is the process of identifying what blocks you put up and then working those out so that you have that clear connection again. Because essentially, drinking or any addiction behavior, whether it's drugs, alcohol, gaming, sex abuse, whatever it is, it's all designed for you to distract yourself from your purpose, your mission, that still small voice that's nudging you to do the next right thing when we'd rather be doing something else. So that's what brought me to getting sober. And then I took a class with Neil Donald Walsh, a whole year class called the Life Skills Program. And I wanted to eventually start hosting conversations with God discussion groups. And the very the I was only in my second or third month of the class, and it's like one call every week. When I went to see him in Baltimore, and I was getting my book signed. In fact, I was just reading about alcohol in his book, like what he had to say about it. I was getting this autograph. Oh, there you go. You can see it a little bit, maybe. Anyway, I was getting the autograph of my book, and I was telling him that as soon as I finally get all this training and I know what I'm doing, I'm going to start this showing up and like holding these classes and helping people change their lives and bring this information. And as he's signing without missing a beat, he's like, if not you, who? If not now, when? And I went home, and the next month, or what week or two, April that year, I started my first conversations with God discussion group. And that's when I started showing up knowing that I'm someone that is to be of service. And then the business came, and then the healing came, and all the other things. But it all started with just realizing that I was completely out of control because I cut myself off from the divine. And it was like they say in the book, big book, that once you become sober and you do this work, it's like you're walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. And that was the shift, really, is that I'm not doing it alone anymore, because we're all one, but we're also all separate. But when you believe you're all separate and not all one, that's when you're cut off from everything. Once you're acknowledging that you are everything, now it's really a creationship with every other thing that comes your way. And that brings me to today, with us talking on this live stream and hopefully helping people a little bit with whatever level of addiction is showing up with their lives, whether it's social media, movies, TV, like it's not just drugs and alcohol. So don't feel that just because your thing might not be drinking, that there isn't relevance to doing the inner work and getting in touch with your soul self.
In doing your work and meeting others, have you come across somebody, for instance, like you said, social media, who maybe feel like maybe they're not in the right place because maybe they feel like they might have a social media addiction, but it's not deemed as serious as drugs or alcohol, that they feel like maybe they don't belong there in a type of meeting or in a support group?
Yeah, I mean, people with whatever it is, it's until it gets bad enough. They have the saying, you have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. In a way, I feel that I'm really blessed that I had alcohol as an addiction, and I like fast forwarded me to the place where I was willing to say, God help me, or the divine help me. The lower key it is, like the more kind of internal oomph, like you really have to take that leap of faith, or surrender to your inner truth is really what it is. It's like, what truth are you avoiding? Because if you are feeling that you're not supposed to be there and you know that there's something more, but you're ignoring it, it's just like you just have to balance the scales to the other side where you want to be more awake than you don't. They call
Mm.
it the rule of 51%. All you have to do is want it more than you don't. And so someone has a social media addiction, if they don't want to quit it more than they don't, there's not going to be any forward motion. And it's just like if they making those little baby steps to start offsetting that scale so that you can get some forward momentum.
When you mentioned they have to, want it in your journey and any of your, colleagues or friends, because you hear about this a lot where family, friends, they try to do like the forced intervention, and you hear how the person they're trying to help is in and out of rehab all the time because the family or friends are constantly trying to help, but then they're always leaving. Is that kind of like what you're meaning? Like if they don't want it bad enough and that's why they're coming out?
Yeah, there's part of it too when it comes to people doing interventions and trying to help. There's this concept called squeezing the sponge, where like no one could have told me before I was ready to come to my own awareness about drinking. No one could have told me anything else. But if like people are saying you need to do this, you need to do that, there's an inherent resistance to what the person is saying. So like it's if you have someone that is in a state like that, it's more, in my opinion, it's more productive to ask questions. Just like how when I was listening to that CD, I thought one thing. I thought I'm an alcohol abuse issue. I'll be able to drink again someday. And then through a series of questions, did you experience, mental obsession? Did you experience that? Did you have any consequences from drinking? He asked all these questions and I was like answering them. And then, well, truth, are you an alcoholic? Truth, do you have a social media problem?
Mhm.
Truth, do you have fill in the blank? And that little voice inside, you're going to have a knowing. Whether you listen to it or not is a different thing. I knew I had a problem with alcohol way before, like I even went to therapy for a whole year, more than a year, knowing that I had an alcohol abuse issue, and lying to my therapist that I was sober even. But yeah, like I wasn't ready to say that I really had the problem until like I was ready. But there's so much resistance for people telling you what you should do, shouldn't do. Asking a question and just holding space is where the magic is, because if for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. You need to get sober, you need to stop drinking, you need to do this, that. But if it's like, well, truth, is your life going the way you like it to go, and asking a question like that and then just space holding, it gives the person a chance to fall into a different space instead of like fighting against something that part of them doesn't want to hear.
So you almost need to make it sound like it's their idea.
In my opinion, yes. And I know, I've granted everybody's different, but when it's your own idea, you have more buy-in from the beginning.
Mhm. So our friends that are with us for this conversation, feel free to ask questions. Hank is willing to answer probably a lot of things. So feel free. I won't throw you under the bus, but like he'll answer everything and go. Um, but you mentioned being intuitive and having that near death and hearing things like what were, if you can remember, because this was younger years, um, like what kind of things were you hearing that you were like, I don't want to know, I don't want to hear that.
Well, during the super young years, I have a big blackout due to some animation in my childhood, say. But it was more like probably fourth grade on. And it was more like at that point in time, I would just have awarenesses of things. Like I might have an awareness of a being, but I wasn't physically seeing it. And it was more like nudges, and I didn't have anything super bad until like later in like my teenage years, like what I would call bad, the things that were actually scaring me. It was more helpful. Like I would just know how to ask for something or manipulate a situation to get what I wanted, and it was very ease, and it was just like a knowing of things.
Mhm.
Though I did like have some weird things floating around, like if a ghost was moving something through the air. Like I had that as a kid, but I wasn't really scared yet until more middle school and high school is when it really started hitting the fan. And I remember like we were at a friend's house and there was like I had the impression of a ghost and we were like talking to it and they turned the Christmas tree on and you could it was like a Native American who never saw a Christmas tree. Or there was a time we were playing with the pendulum, which I do not recommend that you do without tools and knowing what to do with it. But we were talking to something and the pendulum's just swinging around and then all of a sudden it just stopped. Like all motion and like everybody freaked out and went scattering and like then seeing a physical apparition. So those were the things that really started to maybe not like it, but it was also like a lot of internal anger. Like I started not being able to process emotions. I didn't know how to emotionally regulate. So here I am being empathic and aware, seeing things that don't make sense, kind of getting scared at it, but then also without being able to regulate emotions and being an empath and being able to see spirits and things like that, they feed on that kind of energy. So if you're not being able to regulate, that makes it you're more prone to possibly having experiences supernatural nature that are not preferred.
I know one of the stories you told me. Did you or a friend get thrown through a wall in an
Yes.
attic?
Yes. I forgot about that. Well, we were at a party and we didn't know it at the time, but my friend, he had taken like a belt and he had put it around like a teddy bear and he was like hanging this teddy bear by the belt. And it was my one of the other girls there, it was her bear and she was upset that he was doing it and like he literally went up in the air and then went through like the drywall portion. He was like right in between the beams, and then he's like he falls down. He's like, "What the f was that?" And it turned out that her uncle had committed suicide in the attic by hanging. And so when he was causing that and maybe animating her trauma, like of her uncle and knowing that he had passed, it gave that spirit the energy required to and and move him through the wall.
Was that her house or?
It was in that house in the well, the suicide happened in the attic, but we were in the basement of the house.
Mm, that's a perfect representation of FAFO.
FAL, FAFO.
Yeah. Young people be doing dumb things sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, now you touched on it briefly, but you were saying like you would when you were drinking to try and quiet them, it didn't necessarily quiet them, right?
No, I think that I was more subjectable to influence, but I didn't know where the influence was coming from. So like when you drink, you're like numbing your senses, but like you could still have like in the shaman program we talked about cause spirits. You might if you're hanging around in a bar and you have people like spirits that haven't crossed over or cause spirits that like the energy of drinking or whatnot, they're hanging around and they might nudge you like, hey, have another, hey, have another. Like they don't overcome you. They don't have will over you necessarily, but they're nudging you to continue to take the actions that they like because they want to hang around you and feel that way again. So like all that influence is there, but with the alcohol and drinking, as especially as much as I was drinking, like I didn't have the conscious awareness, oh, this is a spirit. It's just like through the subconscious. It's kind of like advertising. You have all that advertising everywhere, and the next thing you know, you're buying something you never needed, but you've seen that ad 30 times, it gets into the subconscious. So just like that, you're getting marketed to by spirits who want you to take certain actions that they like you to take so that they can have a more tangible experience through you.
I feel like I'm hogging all the hang time, Maria. Did you have questions?
When you say spirits, does that necessarily mean it's a spirit that took a human form, or does it mean that it could be any kind of spirit not of this world?
I would say it could be any disembodied consciousness, whether it had a body before or not. It just doesn't necessarily have a body now. For example, a mojo bag, which you can make in hoodoo and other traditions, if you give it you create a job spirit. So you have a mojo bag and you're feeding the mojo bag to create something, and then all of a sudden you get what you want and you never decommission the bag, but there's still this spirit that had that job. And now you're not feeding it anymore and it gets a little annoyed. And now it's like, well, I'm gonna go do my job somewhere else. Maybe I'll get someone that's gonna feed me. Like that would be an example of a spirit that never necessarily had an incarnation that you birthed, somebody birthed, but then never gave it a
Mhm.
proper ending.
And some of these spirits, though, they because we're creative beings, and we create things, and it could be a disembodied body spirit or disembodied pieces and parts of energy that you create that is a part of you. Because it's funny how you say it, because in pranic healing psychotherapy, that's what we learned, that there are these beings that an alcoholic that goes to a rehab multiple times is not because it didn't work. It's because these energy beings that they have collected or have acquired needs to get fed. And that when you said that, it just triggered the class for me. They need to get fed. So they're going to nudge you, hey, we can stop there. We can get maybe just small little drink or just maybe a smidge, a sip. It's interesting that you said that, because in class we talked about it. We learned how to do the treatment, but actually not, putting it together with somebody who experienced it. That's really interesting, that how you word it. Yeah.
And then you can also have like ancestor influences and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know on both sides of the family there was drinking, and then like my grandpa was into some crazy stuff, and like so there could be ancestry stuff that could be playing into the role too. So like now I'm not only getting sober for me, but I'm stopping like a reoccurring pattern in two family lines. So there's that element. And then even with the spirits aside, the real thing is like, well, what is the internal thing that needs to shift where the spirits can't take hold of that anymore? And what I really believe all of it is about is somebody's uncomfortability with being themselves is what it all comes down to. Like people are distracting, they're being belief thieves, believing what everybody else is telling them, and that, instead of getting settled and finding out what's true for them. And what is true for them might be very uncomfortable because they have been taught whatever that is true for them is like not the society norm or not something that they should believe or should step into. They're falling short of all the judgments from their parents because it's not what the parents had envisioned for them. So like the actual healing occurs once you A, get sober, and B, do the inner work enough to be able to regulate, and then also look at these original imprints. And I use the word imprints because everybody has imprints. Not everybody has trauma, thankfully, but everybody has imprints where something that somebody said to you now shapes your reality, and you look at everything through this particular lens. So finding out what those initial imprints are, or initial traumas or wounds, and starting to learn how to navigate them so that when you are triggered or you do get the nudge, you now have a strength from a different area, a strength from that oneness within that you can start to push through and not subject to the desires of something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how does one figure that out? Because if somebody is like you, it took you what? How long before you decided enough is enough?
Oh, I drank from, let's see, probably 2000. Like I got sober in 2005, I think 2006. The years blend together. Almost have 20 years. And I was spiritual before that. Like I had read Conversations with God in 1997. So like I had given myself some good tools, and those things echoed in the back of my mind. Like as I was drinking, like I had some of these spiritual concepts, and I still knew a lot of things, but I just was, medicating. And it wasn't until I realized and really surrendered to, wow, I cannot do this on my own. And I had to, I remember the night I was drinking, and I just said at the end of that night, I said, God help me. And it was not a prayer, it was a decree. It was like, God help me. Not like, oh, please help me. It was like a declaration of will to the universe. And the next day is when I had the breakdown. Like that is not the way that I think help should come, right? But that is exactly what I needed, because I got, like they said, take the day off. I called my therapist, I called the employee assistance line. The next thing you know, I'm doing my assessment. Then like 2 or 3 days, I was already in rehab. It was like boom, boom, boom. And like I was just like going with the flow because I had reached, there was something else driving at that point. As soon as I invited spirit to come in, it was like now I wasn't just trying to swim upstream anymore. I know I was going with the current, but I at least had somebody helping me to drive the boat. instead of going the opposite direction of everywhere my soul is trying to take me. But for every person, it's different. Every journey is different. And, AA doesn't work for everybody. There's a gradient of addictions. Not everybody gets to the point where they have to have a program like that. They might be able to go to a therapist and that's enough. They might be able to find a store like Goddess Elite and take the right classes, get the books, and like begin that journey without having to just reach a bottom where like I almost probably like my doctor had told me based on the feeling of my liver even that I was like just at the cusp of having liver issues. Like I would have died had I not stopped when I did or had serious health issues. My blood counts were all off because I went to my doctor to get pink slipped out of work, basically, so I could go to rehab and not have to work at the same time because I worked at a bank. I was talking to people with financial stress, hearing all the sob stories from Hurricane Katrina. Like it was just like the worst thing possible for an empath. I have this direct line of contact with 100 people a day that are all like I'm just drinking in everything. So I was literally fast forwarding to Grand Canyon low. That doesn't have to be everybody's story though. So it's like going back to all you have to do is want it more than you don't. So starting with the question for anyone, like, what would you like? How does your life feel? Is it how you like your life to look? If the answer is no, then start getting curious. Well, what does serve the soul? What does serve me? And just starting to get curious, that's enough to start the shift. But if it's like, I'm perfect the way I am, like there's some readings, like people come for readings, you can't tell them anything. They just want to hear I call them the fluff and buff readings, where it's like, I just want to hear about how great my life is, right? And for like, so what do you do for someone like that? There has to be some level of humility that though I am a drop of the ocean, I'm the entire ocean within a drop, but I have to, do my part so the ocean can be whole.
Yeah. When you're sitting there, like, you can't tell them anything different. And I'm like, we all have those stories, right? And my favorite's always like the person coming in wanting this married person. And I'm like, stop it. It's never going to happen. Like, the reading hasn't changed in 6 months. Stop it. I'm kind of curious, especially since COVID, spirituality has gotten to be way more accepted, investigated. Are you seeing like a demographic and age where it's more of people doing spiritual recovery after addiction versus other generations, maybe? And not necessarily COVID, because right, they're going to be younger, but because it had, even before COVID, like you weren't immediately thrown into the insane asylum if you're like, I read tarot.
Right.
Have you seen over the years a shift of people kind of being willing to get uncomfortable and maybe with their addiction, be like, you know what, I know I come from a very Christian base. My family has always frowned upon this, but I'm stepping into a place of power where I'm not going to let it stop me. And maybe they're putting down, what their addiction is because they're no longer trying to force themselves in a certain way when it comes to spirituality.
I think in general, there is awakening across the board, and there still might be more resistance with the older generation than younger. I look at COVID as like a big cosmic interrupt for the planet. Like everybody was doing their routines and all of a sudden everything had to stop. And I came up with an acronym for COVID: creating opportunities via intuiting divinity. And everybody just sitting at home, like doing different things, like they started to get in touch with that. And like there's like a whole bunch of younger people, the whole gamut of people started waking up. And more than that, people started going to nature more. Like when we would go to the parks during COVID, there was like so many people. Like now, like you don't see that, but there was like a resurgence into nature, which I think is like one of the greatest things. But one of the things that I think has hindered that a little bit is there is, I think Zane might talk about it a little bit too, like toxic positivity, or like it's only the light and it's all fluff and buff, and like not the acknowledgement of the duality. So like people who only focus on the positive and no acknowledgement for the light, I feel like it creates an unbalanced thing, because the whole point of all this, at least my opinion, is that it's like to have the experience. In order to have the experience, you have to have the contrast. And so some people are ignoring half the equation. So there's this awakening, but this hunger only for the light side. and a lack of education on the contrast.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's the misunderstanding that the dark side, if you will, is all only negative and nothing good comes out of it. And, you know, whereas I'm like, if you get in there and get to the root of the cause, like your anger, you can have divine, justifiable anger. It's how you use it. And most
Yeah.
people would deem anger as a negative feeling, emotion. It can be if you are laying hands on people, if you were blowing up buildings, if you were, running people over. But if you are in a peaceful protest, you're writing letters, you're making positive change without hurting, that is still anger, but you're using it in a helpful type of way. And I don't think people understand, like, that would technically be on the dark side,
Yeah.
understanding and why.
I think that's a huge thing. And like just a willingness to love the part of yourself that can get angry. Like we're taught that it's wrong. And so like we repress that. And I was like that for super long. And it wasn't until maybe 5, 6, I can't, the years blend together. Like even being sober for so many years, I was not emotionally awakened in a way. And it wasn't until I was working with a guide and I had this awareness of some childhood traumas that I didn't remember. And I'm just like, oh, let's go after that. And then like as I got in touch with that, I had the whole gamut of emotions all over the place, did not know how to regulate. I was literally a crazy person. God bless Anya for putting up with me for a lot of reasons, but like, but especially like just having like this whole array, because I was basically a 3-year-old now learning how to emotionally regulate, and it was a long haul. I still have days where I'm a crazy person emotionally, but we're taught that a lot of these things are wrong versus these are all healthy emotions. It's just a matter of navigating them and elevating how you're expressing them. It's just like in the shaman program, we have the different belts, and like instead of reacting with rage, like now you've elevated it to compassion, and that same energy is now being expressed based on whatever the circumstance is with a more loving energy, and embracing all of it because it's all you. But if any part that you're denying, you'll never be whole. So we have a situation where there's a lot of people awakening spiritually, but not to their totality. And that's what I think will come in the future, is like a balancing of that as people are getting a little bit more comfortable diving into the dark side or the deep side. Because it's really contrast. I prefer the word contrast. It's a little less scary.
Yeah. It makes people kind of shudder a little bit when you're like, ooh, the dark side. And, you're like, we have cookies over here. Come. We literally have cookies. I was eating them. One of our friends here says, I went through addiction and found peace in Buddhism and have moved on to witchcraft now. I have found an inner peace in myself and am comfortable with myself. And I love the tarot readings and have even done some on people. I appreciate life so much more and feel like I have gone in touch with myself and my roots. I think that's like one thing too that's kind of important. Like your spiritualism can shift as you're healing and as you're growing. Like there is no one perfect, correct, way for any one person. And that's wonderful that you've had that journey and you're so comfortable. Now I'm like, am I as comfortable as I think I could be? Is that why I hate this planet so much? Get me off of it. That's a whole other conversation. Now, Hank, when you're doing, have you found that you get a lot of clients coming in who, like a ratio of your clients? Do you find that those with addiction kind of feel drawn to you, maybe because they feel, that you have that understanding and like what it means to be going through that, or, have gone through and still working with themselves?
I see a correlation in my clients, like not just with that, but other things that I've healed from. It's like whatever I've healed from, whether like around emotional stuff, relationship stuff, abuse stuff, like seeing violence in the household and things, or the addiction stuff. All the clients, they tends to be threads of commonality, and I believe that's just because I have the medicine for that, having healed from that. And then I'm also learning new things because I'm seeing. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client, and like they're sharing about something going on, and whatever they shared just gave me a whole different insight from a different point of view about one of my past experiences, and it just like blows my mind. So I think that every client and everything, like we're both there for each other in a sacred learning, if you will. But for sure, there's always correlations. Kind of spooky to the level that they happen.
It tends to happen a lot in the store, and I'm like, oh, that's for both of us, isn't it? It is. Note taken.
You're the only one in the room.
Like, thanks. In the middle of the work. What would be like some of the biggest challenges you have once you're like, okay, I'm in rehab, I'm riding the wave, I'm going where I feel like I need to be and getting there? Like, what were those challenges that you were kind of experiencing as you were going through that journey?
I mean, like at the very beginning, it was literally just white knuckling it and like using the tools that I had from IOP. I don't even remember everything, but one of them was like act opposite. Like if I wake up and I don't feel like going to work today, and I don't feel like this, and I don't feel like that, they would say act opposite, as oh, it wasn't, you are a person that would want to go to work. And that kind of goes into the category maybe of fake it till you make it. Like I don't feel this way, but I'm going to do the things that that kind of person does and get through it all. And then really my big journey started on that 1 year anniversary when I took the Kneel Down and Walsh class, and I found Goddess Lead. That was way back, like I remember getting my first crystal from Goddess Lead. It was like from when Pat and Jim owned the store, and I went to like a psychic fair and I won the crystal, and then I ended up finding Lilydale. And it's just like, I guess the big thing is that just starting to follow the little day signs that spirit starts to lead out for. You have to get through enough of it, the inner work, so you can start just noticing these things, and then things kind of line up and you just smooth and ease from one thing to another. And if you all of a sudden stop seeing that, that's when to start asking a question, well, what is it that I'm not willing to be aware of? Because maybe now there's a whole nother layer of things to kind of unearth.
When you
but I
said
suppose the one big, oh, go ahead.
when you said like way back when, and I'm like, somewhere I have that very first Hank picture standing in the old Goddess Elite holding two to forks, with this. And I'm like, oh, but where is it? We can see Hank in that part of his journey. If I can find that photo buried way back in the depths of Canva.
That's when I still had some hair in different locations. Yeah.
No beard. But did you run into any like of your possible drinking partners who maybe were like, it's not a problem, you're fine, just come out with us,
No.
be okay? Or did you cut yourself off for them? Like, you know what, I can't even be around you at this point.
During my drinking, by the end of it, I wasn't drinking socially like that anymore. I was drinking a lot at home or going to the bar by myself, and I had excluded myself from that category. So I had isolated myself from almost everyone by the end. And I think most people were respectful. Like the only couple people I can think of from the bank, I think everybody knew that I probably shouldn't be drinking at that point. I would get to work one time, and I remember one of my coworkers, he's looking over, he's like, hey, you go drinking last night? I'm like, yeah. He's like, look at your feet. And I looked at him wearing like two different shoes. And I had noticed I put two different shoes on. And, and I went to crazy parties and things, and people kind of probably had the idea that I shouldn't be drinking. So I got a lot of support from my workplace. And like my friend circle, I had cut off everybody. So I didn't really have anybody like checking up on me or trying to talk me back into drinking, other than the online gaming. I did play like Warhammer and stuff like that, Warhammer, World of Warcraft. And so like those online people, I also just turned off the machine and I didn't talk to them anymore. So I ghosted them. It's so wrong of me. No, I did tell the one guy running it that I was going through some rehab stuff and I would be back, but I just never came back.
Oh no, I don't have the Hank picture anymore.
Oh, I didn't realize you were looking for it right now.
Yeah. My other bajillion tabs open on Google.
I'm sure you'll find it. You can have it to embarrass me for the next stream.
Like, look what I found. I will say I don't know what made me kind of realize this at one point, but I want to say it was around the last holiday season that like if somebody is like, hey, do you want a drink, and if the other person says no, it's almost immediately followed up, but like, why not, like we're having fun. But if you're like, hey, do you want to do a line of coke, and you're like, no, nobody pushes, nobody questions. But for some reason, like our society, it's almost like not okay to say no, I don't want a drink. You have to explain yourself for some reason why you don't want a drink. And I'm like, that is very interesting.
That's triple true for Germans. When I went to pick up Anya, I had just gotten sober, and I wasn't even like not 2 months sober. I think I don't remember the exact time, but I was in the middle of rehab, paused rehab, go to pick up Anya, and I tell her on the phone, I'm like, "Hey, talk to your parents for me before I get there, and tell them, I can't drink. Don't offer me any alcohol." And she's just like, "I cannot have that conversation with my parents." There's so much taboo around the idea of being an alcoholic, even. And then so I get there and I go into her living room, my parents' living room, and the first thing her dad does is he gets like with this milk crate thing filled with beer. They're like these half-liter bottles of my favorite beer called Kustritzer, and he puts it on the table and goes, "Oh, Hank, I made you a present," and I'm like, "I can't drink," and he's like, "What do you mean?" And I try to explain it, and then he has like this shelf of scotches, and he brings down like this old scotch, which is probably at the time older than I was, and he brings down all these bottles, and he's like, "Have you ever seen such a selection?" And he like offered me a drink of scotch. I'm like, "I can't drink," and I tried to explain it again, and then I just started crying, and he goes, "Okay, okay, okay," and then like he stopped pushing it, but it was like he was really pushing to get that
Mhm.
initial drink in me, like at least my perspective. And then everywhere I went to that brief time in Germany, it was like I was being tempted. We go to a Chinese restaurant, instead of fortune cookies, they give a thing of plum wine. We go to a Greek restaurant, it happened to be their anniversary. They're coming around with shots of free ouzo over and over again. And I'm like just white knuckling, going, I can't have it. But I wanted it so. But like there was still all this drinking pressure that we
Mhm.
really have, like that it's the normal thing. That's changed a lot in the last 20 years. Now when you go there, it's a whole different experience. But at the time it was like really everybody was drinking.
Yeah. Pamela's like, I didn't know Hank with hair. um,
I have hair. It's just hanging.
instead of brushing it out,
I'm
you
gonna
might
eventually be able to do the comb over where I can put it through the right like that, right?
they have contests for like beard art and stuff, right? Um,
Oh, do they?
yeah,
I'll have to.
beard sculpting. Yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
it's amazing what these guys do. And I'm like, who has time? Um, apparently they do.
They
Um,
do.
yeah, I forget what event. It was like a gathering of friends, and I just remember thinking that hearing this happen, and then me thinking like they shouldn't have to explain to you why they don't want to drink. Like, why do they have to justify not wanting a drink? You know. Um, and then I'm like, is that a one-off? And it was kind of asking around. I'm like, okay, this happens kind of often, and I think it's like a society or a cultural thing,
Hmm.
where alcohol is the better drug, the more accepted drug. And, so to say no, it's like, well, why not? Like everybody's doing it. But again, no, I don't want a line of coke. No, I don't want to shoot heroin. Oh, good for you. I say no more, friend. But it was kind of eye-opening. Um, this was a conversation I was having earlier in the store with somebody else today about them kind of having a healing journey and some recovery. And they mentioned how running in and working with some of these people that he kind of had to pull away from because other people in the support group, like their whole life revolved around recovery and not in a way of just, I'm going to get my spiritualism or I'm going to do better in my job and get where I want to go because I'm not dedicating all my time and trying to feed this recover or this addiction. It was like, "Hi, what's your name?" And it would be like, "My name is blah 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 and I'm a 20-year, and like every bit of conversation always revolved around the recovery, and it became their identity. And, he goes, I feel like that was a whole other addiction in a way, was being addicted to being in recovery. Have you like experienced that, or, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've had a couple. Well, full disclosure, I don't go to meetings very often. Um, in fact, in the big book of AA, it doesn't say anywhere that you have to go to meetings. It says you need to share what you've been freely given, and you can do that by being self-employed and working in a healing clinic and all kinds of different things like that. But like, and you have to work the steps. And I actually got banned from a meeting once. Like I had been asked to do a lead, and when I went to the lead, like this sounds like it should be common sense, but I'm like, meetings don't keep you sober. The steps keep you sober. Like doing the actual inner work and getting in touch with the divine keep you sober. But the guy who brought me through the program, like he basically said, if you only go to meetings and you don't do anything else, you're coasting, and there's only one way you can coast, and that's downhill. And so, like, if you're just going to meetings and you're just in the fellowship and you're just eating the donuts and drinking the coffee and listening, but you're not actually doing any of the work, is that program being of service to you? And I was criticized for this, but like back in when AA first started, they had like an insane success rate, and it's not even close to that today. And what's the reason? Is that the gradient of people that are going has changed substantially. It used to be only the worst of the worst, like you're going to die if you don't get sober. Those are the people that were finding AA. And now you have this huge pool of people that are there for various reasons, including a court order, that have no interest in actually doing any inner work. They're just there because someone told them to be. So you have like a lot of people there that aren't really there helping, and they're diluting from the purpose. So like I think meetings are great when you're going and you're sharing and actually doing the work. But if you're just going because someone told you have to, half measures avail us nothing, to quote something from the big book. So you really want to go in totality and do the work, and then you go to the meetings to share what you were given. But there's a lot of people that I've heard that are longtime people in sobriety that have been starting to look for something different because they're not getting what they needed anymore. And so like there's a similar vibe to that. And I think there's probably a wide range, because you could easily go to sleep again going to meetings all the time and not actually doing the work, which includes doing a daily inventory and immediately admitting where you were wrong, immediately going to fix and make repair and make amends. It would be really easy just to go to meetings and forget all that stuff and just have fun with the fellowship and free food and all that kind of stuff.
Free coffee, free donuts.
But when I got sober, there was a couple guys who were like really hard on money, and they found all the anniversary meetings, those are potlucks. So you get to have the whole spread. And they were able to go from meeting to meeting and meeting. They was smart. They were eating for free. They didn't have a lot of money. It's not just donuts and coffee, they got the whole gamut. I don't know since COVID, maybe that's changed, but like there were some meetings that had a pretty, even spiral ham and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I might go to a meeting. Shoot.
Yeah.
If it's a caffeine and, especially Celsius, that's how I get my days done. And Kona coffee now. Thank you, Maria, for bringing me Kona coffee from Hawaii.
You are welcome.
But the people that they can't talk about anything else, it's kind of like, I wonder, is it kind of like that whole you prose too much and too loudly? Are you really doing the work if that's all you can talk about? You'd be like, hey, look, that car is blue. Yeah, I used to ride around in a blue car when I would go get my next fix. Like,
oh, like a one-upper.
Yeah. Like every bit of conversation comes back to how they're in recovery and how they're doing it. And part of me, and I'm like, good for you, but dude, like,
I think the people that really get it are going to be asking more questions and letting other people talk than doing the talking.
Gotcha. Because, I'm kind of like, do you burn out the empathy when you just drive it constantly? If every bit of conversations like that, now the rest of us are like,
well, because now I'm the star and do what I do. No, I don't. There ought to be some level of humility. And like the ones that really get it probably aren't saying that they get it at all.
Well, if any of our friends in chat have any questions about addiction, recovery, sobriety, feel free to ask. We have Hank here to answer questions, and the bus drives over Hank since you are the main the main knower of tonight's topic. Um, I met you in 2011 when I took over Goddess Elite. So you have been sober, was like 4 or 5 years?
Yeah,
And
I got sober March of '06.
'06. Okay. So yeah, it would have been 5 years because it was October of 11. And you didn't mention it right away or anything of the store. And I forget how it even came up. And I remember being kind of surprised because I'm like, wouldn't have seen it. And I think that just goes to show how much work you have put in, even in the very beginning of, working through that and going through that. And I don't know what I would have thought, but it wouldn't have been anything that I'm like, oh yeah, could have seen that one, not surprised. It was kind of like, really, the same Hank that the one back there with the tuna forks making noise, that one? Jar creams behind him, that guy? Oh, okay. Never would have thought.
I fooled a lot of people even when I was drinking. Like when I was at the bank, I was a top performer, but I was a mess inside. Like I was really putting up a good mask and a good front, but inside I was like dead.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Alcoholism is it the only one or one of the few that can literally kill you with withdrawals, if
Yeah,
not done
detoxing
properly?
can be extreme. In fact, I think that will give people some of a drip, like to wean them off and stuff. I did not need to go through that, fortunately. Mine was outpatient, but yeah. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Poof. What is it going to be though? Oh, it will come back or it won't. We'll see.
Pamela asks, if you don't go to meetings often, what helps you during difficult times, or are you triggered?
Oh, I have a support system. I have a lot of people around me, a lot of fellow healers and things. Of course, my family, my wife. I have a very devout spiritual practice. And so, like, one of my first things I'll do is I'll like go and get my Florida water, put some Florida water, blow my hucha, my heaviness into a candle, light a candle, activate my altar. I went through all of this. And, like, I did go to meetings for years until I moved to the West Side. That's probably when I stopped going to meetings just because of a convenience thing, and I just never picked it up. But it's also like they say to help, give away what was so freely given. And every single day, I'm helping people. And I think that that's what really keeps you sober. And Neil Donald Walsh speaks to this in his book, which kind of kicked off part of my spiritual journey, is that we have it mistaken that we need to do something in order to have something in order to be something, but it's about being first. And if you cause another to be the thing that you want, then you're acknowledging that you have it to give. So the idea of being a service, and if AA is a great place to be a service. So like you can go to meetings and you can be a service to your community, but you could also do that by working at a volunteer basis somewhere, or being a healer, or all kinds of different things, running a discussion group like I did with Conversations with God to start. And I was helping other people have a little bit more of themselves. And then I, by default, was getting a little bit more of myself. And then it just kind of, I've been working at it a while.
It seems very similar to, I'm not going to get the saying right, but it's like you learn more when you are the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like as you're helping others, your aha moments go off for yourself as well.
And now that I'm thinking about it too, there was one time when there was a unique living situation at the house at the time, and I had the realization that my sobriety was threatened. And I went to a meeting. And so like I know that that tool is there, and I will go to one. If I don't have a tool and I cannot help myself, I absolutely will depend on that community. And I have to think about something. I'm going to percolate on something around that too. But at the end of the day, like what tools are there? And I will utilize every tool that I have. And most of the time, once I realize that I need a tool, it's already a time for me to ask a question. Well, where have I actually been triggered to the point where now I need to go and do something like a big physical representation of intention through a candle magic or for something else? Something hit really close to a wound. And so all those opportunities aren't just about navigating to not relapse. It's also about turning the spotlight in on oneself and going, cool, there's a wound that has gone a little bit deeper. Let me really look at that. How do I feel around that? What do I have a memory coming up around that? And like doing the inner work. Otherwise, you're just kind of, putting band-aids on things as things come up. But it's like about going and getting the bleeder.
Mm-hmm. And band-aids are very, very temporary, kind of like the addiction part, right? So, yeah, Maria, do you have any more questions for Hank? My hamster wheels have slowed down in the question formulating. Yours too slowed down? No questions from Maria?
I know someone with addiction, and it doesn't just have to be alcohol, that is always an ongoing process because you always learn things from yourself as you keep evolving. But there had to be a moment where you're like, oh, this is what it feels like. I don't have to constantly avoid that bar, avoid this. This is what it feels like. Did that ever happen to you? Like a little bit of the aha, this is what it feels like.
Well, I mean, at the very beginning, I would avoid bars. I wouldn't like people drinking around me. And I can't say that I had an aha moment where I suddenly realized I could be around it. There was even a time where, like when I was in Germany, Anya's dad bought like all this non-alcoholic beer because he figured if I couldn't have alcohol, I could have non-alcoholic beer. I'm like, nope, I can't do that. Now I could have one if I wanted to have a non-alcoholic beer. I would be able to do that. But it was a gradual thing. And it's kind of like I'm just taking one step at a time. And the next thing you know, you're on top of a mountain or at least a peak. And you look back and you got there. But I couldn't tell you all the little individual steps. But there's definitely a shift where things just, as Zane would say, smooth going on ease. Things just get easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you do get knocked off a little bit, the recovery time is faster. But it really comes down to just being honest with yourself about what you need and the willingness to ask for it, the willingness to receive it. That's a whole other thing. Like if I did need help, being able to go to Anya and be like, hey, I feel A, B, and C way. And like just being able to talk to someone and receive whatever they have. Like that's the recipe really is the willingness to be honest, ask, receive, repeat.
You mentioned falling off the bandwagon. If somebody were, like, how detrimental, is it? I know I've heard of people beating themselves up when they fall off the bandwagon. Like to them, they feel like all the progress they made is gone. It means nothing. They're starting from zero. And it seems very hard for some people to pull themselves out of that pity of like, I fell off, now what? Like to get themselves out of that spiral, that they're in. Like what would be useful tools for them to kind of overcome? Like I fell off the bandwagon and everything I did was moot now.
Oh, well, falling off the bandwagon for an alcoholic, because unlike some other drugs where you have a craving, you take the drug and the craving goes away, the phenomenon of craving with alcohol happens after you take the drink. And so there's been people that had 10 years sober, have one drink, end up going on a binge, getting into a car accident, and that's it. So like it can be dangerous if it's like the real alcoholic, if you will. And there's so much of a gradient. It's hard to answer that question, but it's like you have to give yourself the space of grace. And if you relapse like that, then the question is, cool, what could I do different? What could I be different? And like getting curious with a question instead of saying I coulda, shoulda, woulda, because now you're fragmenting in the past, which isn't gonna help us. And then you might be like, oh, I'm never gonna do it. Now you're fragmenting the future. Like in this moment right now, like truth, like what was that path that led me to that drink and what could I do differently next time? And that comes down to willingness again. And the willingness to be humble and not have an excuse, because some people who drink like that also, it might be like, well, so and so brought me to go, like I could have relapsed when I went to Germany. He put that gift, oh, I didn't want to say no to a gift, have the drink, and the next thing you know, I've relapsed and had to start all over again. So it's
Mm.
like having to be honest with like, well, where was my weak spot, if you will, that I gave away my power to something outside of myself. Just
Mm.
me and God is really. But if I empower somebody like my father-in-law more than me and God or anything like that, that's the danger zones where we left. So like asking the question like, where did I give away my power, and giving yourself the space of grace. Nobody on this planet, I don't think, has ascended. We're not perfect.
Mhm.
Everybody makes mistakes. What my one of my first bosses, he had this quote when I would kind of be judging myself. He's like, "Show me a man who's never made a mistake, and I'll show you a man who doesn't know anything." And so, like recognizing that you now have more information and more experience than you did before, and now how can you take that forward and be a little different with it?
Nice. Um, well, we don't have any more questions coming in, so I guess we'll wrap up here. What would be like your most sage advice for anybody maybe in addiction and just looking for a way to get started on a recovery path?
I recommend it. I always post it in January. Maybe I'll post it tonight too. There is the CDs that made the difference for me, that helped me really come to the awareness that I'm an alcoholic. Just listen to the Paul Fisher Big Book Workshop. It's on YouTube now. Back in the day, it was only on CDs. Now it's like easily findable. And I just started listening to that because I was desperate. But like because of the series of how he asked those questions, it got me to the place where I was able to be honest with myself with the question, truth, am I an alcoholic? And the reason you say truth is you have a greater uh, degree of a bullcrap detector. If you say truth to yourself and then say something, if you're lying, you kind of know. It works with people too. You say truth and you ask them a question, like you either they'll tell you the truth or you'll have a better indication that they're lying to you. So it's kind of like, shining an extra spotlight on the truth of the matter. And just try stuff. What works for me isn't going to work for everybody, and vice versa. We all have our unique, you know, launch codes, if you will. And the thing is to stay the course. Like Dr. K, when we stream, she would always say, you got to stay the course, and you just keep on keeping on. And like eventually something shifts. If you want it more than you don't, and you keep on choosing and showing up for yourself, eventually there's a shift.
I went to go check higherhealingwithhank.com. So,
Oh, that's gone.
yeah, I got that black like window screen, like that site. I'm like, okay, well, yeah. So, Hank, if somebody wanted to reach out to you because they feel comfortable after listening or watching this and they're like, maybe he can help me on my journey, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah. My website is my name, Hank, Setala.com. So that's where you can find me, or on Facebook, uh, or go to Goddess Elite's website. I'm a store reader. You can find me there. I think it links to my website too, but you can find me on the Goddess Elite website. Um, I can post it in the link right now. So you can click this link and then find me. There we go. Ta.
But even if you use the Goddess Elite website, because through us, Hank is Zoom only. But if you shoot him a message and say, hey, I found you via Goddess Elite, but these dates times don't work. Like he's very flexible and he'll work with you. Um, and if you're local, Hank has his own office with all the noise making gadgets. So not only
Mhm.
healing sessions, be it consultations, but sound healing. Um, Hank, you also do like tree of life readings for people. Do those help even with addiction type of clients? The tree of life readings.
Definitely. Like the Tree of Life reading is a message from your soul to you, and like what you need to know now, and then what is showing up in your life that's stopping you. So basically it's going to be like kind of like whatever's showing up to stop that from coming through is going to be the core of your work at this point in time, to just have more of you and to have less boulders blocking like what you want to create in your life. They can help everybody. And if you don't want that kind of reading, I also do Golden Dawn readings, which is more around a specific question. It's like a 15 card reading where it's like, hey, should I do this job? And then it's a whole reading about about that.
So, and if anybody is interested in a healing session or healing, working with Hank, you are a certified Reiki master. You have been through the shaman program, so it's just dawning on me. All three of us have been through the shaman program.
Yeah.
What other? I know you have some knowledge of NLP. What tools do you have in your healing tool belt for people?
A life experience, which I say that not jokingly, like really that is probably my greatest medicine is from my experience. But from my experience, I filter it through Reiki and shamanism, sound healing, uh, color therapy, tarot. I can't even think of all of them. I did take a Lomi class with Harry, which is like that was one of my favorite modalities ever. That's Hawaiian
Mm-hmm.
hand healing, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just amazing stuff. I have a binder in my office with all my pieces of paper that say I know how to do stuff. I should look at it and remember all the different things I could like put on a list. But life experience through the filters mostly of a life coach, shamanic, nature mystic.
And so, our friends who are with us this evening, listening, watching, if they're not local, you can work with them from a distance.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's like you want a full sound session from a distance, I use my mesa, which is like a little medicine bundle. I go through a little ceremony where you blow your essence and your issues into the mesa, and I put that on the table with the camera on, and it serves as a proxy. And you just stay in a receptive state, and I do what I would normally do as if you were in the room. And I find it to be super effective. And in some ways, like Zane would say, that when you are virtual, healings and readings and things, I mean, the healings actually have a greater effect because you're not just working
Mm-hmm.
the person, you're also working their space. There's like a whole different element. So, like, I find that there's some nuances to virtual work that's actually more potent in some ways, or maybe just different. But like, no matter where you're at, vocal or virtual, it's very effective.
Pamela says, I see Hank somewhat regularly and I get something from him every time we meet. I love our sessions and thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, guys, if there's any last minute questions for Hank about his journey or addiction and recovery, spiritual healing, with doing the recovery, now's the time to ask. Otherwise, we will let Hank go. And I was going to say, because your little ones are probably ready to go to bed, but it just dawned on me, your little ones
They're
are
not
probably
little.
taller than I am, and they're not little anymore.
Oh, you should see Oliver. He's going to be like a 7 foot tall person, I swear. Yeah. They don't know what a bedtime is either. I'm probably a poor parent in that regard. They're very independent, but they get all their stuff done. So, like, as long as you wake up in the morning, don't give me a hard time and get your stuff done. I have a lot of grace for how you want to manage your time. But
Yeah,
so far, they're doing pretty good.
They're teens. They're both in their teens by now, right?
I know. It's crazy. I thought I was busy already, but now it's also like taking me to this social thing, take me to this thing. And I'm just like, I was kind of scared for Max getting his license, but now I'm kind of like, ooh, when's he getting his license?
And like, go drive your brother for me.
Yeah, and take your brother. Now I just freed up 8 hours of my time a week. And I'm not exaggerating. There's some days where it's like I go somewhere and bouncing back and forth and like 4 hour blocks are just gone with being a chauffeur. Which is fine. It's I'm just remembering back when I was little, my mom was just like, I can't wait for you to get your license. I'm like, I get it now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I loved when Rune was little, and I'm like, your messes were smaller, you weren't as stinky, but I'm like, I would not, you could not bribe me with enough money to have another little one. And I'm like, I enjoy my freedom. He cooks his own meals, he drives himself to work, like he's his own functioning human, and I love that. And I would not restart that 18, year clock again. Like, no, and thank you. No, there's not enough money in the world to do that. But I feel like when the customers come to me, and if Rune happens to be, and they go, is that your son? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, but he was this big. And I'm like, right, it's been a minute since you've seen him. And I feel like that, with, your boys, because I'm like, I remember them being little and running around and knocking things off the
Oh
damn.
yeah, that for those who don't know the story, one of the very first times Melissa met Max, and he was like, I mean, super tiny at the time, and we're at the old store, and he just sees a shelf full of Buddhas, like these little fragile, breakable Buddhas, and he sees Buddha, and he knows Buddha because I got Buddha statues. He's just like Buddha, and just like hand swipes the whole row of Buddhas. I think you still have a broken one behind the counter that he broke. I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he knocked a giraffe onto Ian's leg at the time. That one you probably didn't mind.
He knew something then that I was still catching on to.
Yeah, maybe.
What about another kitty? I don't know. Sith is a one cat. I don't know. And I've said when he passes, I would probably take some time off because it's going to be hard when he goes. And if I do take another cat, I kind of decided that I would get like a senior cat that nobody adopts because they're old and nobody wants, an older cat. So not one while I still have Sithers, but maybe eventually an older senior cat that probably, some little old grandma or grandpa passed. And now this poor cat's in a shelter and nobody's going to adopt it because, it's an older cat. So like, come sit on my lap and my couch, buddy. We'll be friends. But yeah, you could not bribe me for another child. No, no, not going to happen. But well, thanks for joining us, Hank, and talking about your journey and your recovery, and sharing us stories about people being thrown through walls and the voice.
That's not normal. That's only happened once.
And I misremember the story a little bit because I for some reason thought it was you that got pushed through the wall.
No. No, it was Adam. So, I would never be mean to a teddy bear like that. Okay.
Yeah, right. Well, I feel bad for the girl, I mean, your friend kind of deserved it, honestly, in my not so humble opinion on this matter. Go Grant, or it was her uncle, right? Go uncle. Yep. For pushing, dude through the wall. But thanks for sharing your story, and hopefully we can think of other topics that you can join us on. I know we've covered sound therapy, and you mentioned color, so maybe we can get into some color.
Yeah, like Patty Conklin's Color Works. I mean, I don't know how long of a stream we can do, but maybe a stream on healing tools, and that could be one of the tools.
Okay.
Like do it your home tools or something like that. Like
right. Never had I only ever had 4-legged kiddos. I don't think I could keep up with 2-legged ones. keep a 2-legged one alive.
Yeah.
They get challenging when they get their attitudes, and you have to remember you can't kill them legally.
Mm-hmm. Legally,
they're made cute, so you don't kill them. I shouldn't say that because Rune was actually a pretty easy kid until he wasn't, and it wasn't attitude and mouthing off. It was all other situations that I'm like, Maria, help me. Help me. I'm mom. I'm too close to the situation. My boy needs help. But yeah, and maybe that's something that could be a topic. It's like when you have young people going through things, how do you help them as a healer? And, not only do you have Western medicine, but we have the spiritual tools as well. Your 2-legged or chickens. There you go. You can keep them alive. So maybe you could keep a small person. But maybe we can talk on young people and what they're going through and like what spiritual can help with them, and when they're willing to listen and when they're not, when it becomes mom's weird thing, when, they were all into it a year ago and now suddenly mom's just being weird again. So
yeah.
What do your boys feel about what you do? Are they kind of like, that's dad's thing, or do they have interests?
Uh, Oliver might someday. Like I remember when they were like super little, I was like teaching them Pachamama and Mama Kia and like all these things, and like Max looked at me at Aldi, I think it was, when I was like doing weird shaman stuff going down the aisle, and he's like, "Daddy, you can teach me all about this shaman stuff later. Right now, you can just let me be a kid." And I was like, "Whoa," you know. And I kind of like leave it to them. Like occasionally one of them will come up and they want to light a candle for something, very rare occasion. Um, but they're on their own journey. Like not everybody is going to be a healer. Like they already kind of, you can see where they're leaning to in life. Like Max is going to be a musician. Like he plays already like 8 instruments. I'm not even exaggerating. He like picks up a new instrument. He's just like, doo-doo-doo-doo. I'm like, how do you do that? But so like, everybody's like path is different. So like, I'm not trying to force a path on them, but I'm definitely available if and when they have something going on, if they can receive it from me, which they might not be able to. I think that's the smartest thing. Like when my kids are going through something, I'm like, Maria,
yeah.
my kiddos need help. I heard you're good with kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm too close. I'm too emotionally involved. I've done things, but I feel like I am in my own way now in this because of being the parent. I need somebody outside of the circle to address it. And that was a big thing, right? That was a blow to the mom ego, because your mom, you're supposed to be able to fix everything for your kid. And it took me a minute to be like, sometimes that means having somebody else do the work. I am fixing it by realizing somebody else needs to be the one to do the work. So, kids.
It's no different than a doctor would give their family member to another doctor. Mm-hmm. You don't want the emotion to play into the role of the healing. So the doctor don't want to play the emotions to the whatever they're doing.
Right. And realizing you're having a pulmonary issue and I'm a dermatologist. But I am not the doctor. Yeah. So, Melanie, I used to joke. Now, for a while, I was like a single mom because Rune's dad was deployed, in war over in Mosul. And it was just me and this little bitty Rune running around. And he wasn't like a bad kid, but he had a lot of energy. And I would be up late waiting to see if his dad could come online to chat from Iraq. So, at times I wasn't getting much sleep. And I remember thinking like I could go down the road to Joann's when there was Joann's, get some Velcro, double-sided Velcro, and put one side of it on the wall and like put the other side on the backs of his onesies and stuff. And when I just needed to sit down, I could just like stick him to the wall and be like, okay. He can't go anywhere. He can't get in trouble. He's small enough that making faces at him keeps him happy and, laughing. Like I can make faces at him while he's Velcroed to the wall and it doesn't hurt him. And I never did it, but I thought about it very heavily at times.
Sounds good.
So, yeah. Children will teach you all sorts of things about yourself as well as their little personalities as they're growing up. And our young people are going through a lot. So maybe that's a whole other topic we should talk on and how to help them.
I'm sure you've had the moments where you're telling your kids something and like you're having this thought or you're getting upset about it or whatever. And then like Spirit's like, you did that. And like all of a sudden, like you're looking at what your kids did and you remember when you did it. And then you remember when your mom said, I hope you have someone just like you.
Yeah. There's times Rune is like an exact replica of his dad. I'm like, if you hadn't came out of me, I would have thought they handed me the wrong baby, like literally. Other than like maybe the shape of the nose, like everything else is his father. And, I would joke and I'm like, I got so left out of this equation. I feel like, I was cheated here. And then as he got older, there would be little funny, sarcastic, snark comments. I'm like, ooh, there I am. You might look like your dad, but you're my personality. And I'm okay with that. Because there's reasons why your father and I aren't together anymore. So, the influence, but then like a whole other side topic of that nature versus nurture and like little things he would do that I'm like, your dad wasn't even here to teach you that, but you're doing it. Interesting.
Yeah.
I know you're lying because you're doing certain things that your dad would do when he was lying.
And that makes you think about ancestral stuff, like are things passed through the genes? I know Bruce Lipton has the whole biology of the belief book, and like how you can then break the things that are inherited. Like how much is that programmed in and ancestral, possibly not necessarily to do with his dad, but just the ancestral line. Maybe he'll dive into that with Maria's help, of course, not yours.
Maybe his father's side unfortunately has history of like suicide, and so those are some issues that we've had to work through. And that's why I'm like, Maria, so even when he's thought about having certain objects and items, and I'm like, sit down and let's talk. That there's been family members that have used said items, in not very good, helpful ways. Do you think this is a smart thing? So maybe, those type of conversations, especially with the younger people, and like understanding, like, here's what some family history had. If you're feeling drawn to it, this could be why. I think they've even got science now about, past traumas being passed down in genes, being stored in genes. So, if we know anybody that's an expert on that, that would be a great, interesting topic. I would want to talk for hours on that, honestly. But our young people, I feel like they're a good topic that, we should talk about and how we help them. Because all three of us have young people or people that were young not too long ago. Because Maria, I think your youngest, he's about the same age as Rune, if I...
Yeah.
So, and Rune's a young 20-something.
He's 20-something. See, now my mind's blowing that he's 20. Oh my gosh.
Somebody was like, yeah, his birthday's coming up. I'm like, shut up. Shut up. I don't like thinking about that. He's going to be 23. Wow. I don't like that. And then I remind myself, like, technically his brain isn't even done forming. Like, the male brain doesn't stop until about 25, and they can still physically grow up until then. So he's not even done becoming an adult right now. His brain is still processing things and learning things and figuring out who he is. So when I come home and all my kitchen cabinets are open and I know my apartment's not haunted, it's haunted by my son. And I'm like, he's still learning,
Yeah, I really relate to that comment.
So, but he's a very, very good, and I say kid, young man, just close my cabinet, son, if you're ever watching this. Close the kitchen. But so yeah, if our friends in the audience think that might be an interesting topic, let us know. We can kind of arrange that. We'll see who else might have some expertise on speaking with this. I know Dr. K does some work with young people. Maybe we can find a Tuesday that works for her as well. See if she can come on and join us.
She's had a real passion for working with kids. So that would be right up her alley.
Yay, Melanie. Melanie says, yes, please. I know she was putting together, and the last time we had her on, she was like reevaluating, putting together like a type of class series, I believe it was, for young people. Especially school age, navigating that while learning who they are and what's going on and dealing with school pressures and things of that sort, plus everything else going on outside in the world. Another yes, please. So we'll have to, and Hank, if you know if anybody else who might be able to talk on that, let us know. Because sometimes I flip my mental Rolodex of people I know, and I'm like, really? I can't think of anybody that might be able to talk on that? Like, that's really interesting.
Sometimes I go through my Facebook friends list, and like, sometimes it jogs my memory. I'm like, oh yeah, that person might. I'll see if I can think of someone else.
don't think I haven't done that when Maria's like, what about this topic? And I'm like, hold please, scroll, pull up
Yep.
texting, scroll, pull up email. I feel like I know somebody in here. Um, but okay, well, we'll try and put together, working with our young people and how to help them and what they might be going through. I don't know if any of our young people would be comfortable talking, even if we put like the avatar up, they don't see their face, we don't say who they are, but if they can share some of their stuff as personal experiences and what they went through and, how that made them, feel versus maybe what they were presenting outwardly. And like, what should we be looking for as parents and loved ones? Are they really as happy-go-lucky as they say they are? Because I know sometimes they aren't.
Yeah.
But
people are good fakers sometimes.
Unfortunately, yeah.
They probably learned from their parents. I'm calling myself out too. Like, I was a good faker, so like, I'm fine. Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Fine.
Yeah. Well, I know Rune has already said like he wants no part of taking over Goddess Healy. And I'm like, why? Like, I could literally hand this to you. Start coming in, learn how I do it. He goes, I see how much you work and how little free time you have. He goes, I don't want that. And I'm like, you know what? Fair. I respect that. So good on you to understand that about what you want already as an adult. So it's fun watching them make those decisions and learning by watching us, so.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for joining. Hopefully we'll get Hank back here soon for another topic, some healing tools and maybe some young people talking. That could be, and maybe Hank could even talk on that one, even a chat about kids that see spirits and have imaginary friends. I can talk on that a little bit. And if my mom is watching and if she's still on here, she could probably talk about how many times in a certain house I would stand outside my bedroom in the kitchen, refusing to go back in that room. Because what I would see in that room at night. So, and how to support them, how to help them. And, that could be another good topic. But yeah. Make some notes. Do you remember that? I remember Dad sitting on the edge of the bed going, there's nothing here. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay. Not that giant thing right there. Okay. We can put that on and see how we can talk about that. But thanks for joining, guys. Thank you, Hank, for joining us and sharing your journey.
Anytime. Thank you.
And again, if anybody would like to reach out to Hank, you can go to his website, which is www.hanksetala.com. Setala, SETALA.com, and let him know you found him through here, even though I'm sure you wouldn't mind being surprised either way, Hank. If they're like, I just found you randomly.
That happened. Someone found me through Google the other day. I'm like, cool. What did you Google? They're just like shaman healer near me, and there I am.
Do you have like a Google pinpoint map like shaman?
I don't know how they did it, but they found me through Google, which doesn't happen that often. Usually it's word of mouth, because the thing I tell every client at the end is like, please tell all your friends about me, and a lot of them do, and that's how I get most of my businesses, through that kind of referral process. Well,
that word of mouth, especially when it's like, I got great benefit, please go see this person, then that is a very great thing. And then that's like an honor, right? That they trusted you so much that they're willing to send a loved one to you. But, oh, and Chris apparently too saw things and did not go back in her room at times. Um, but well, everybody have a great night, and thank you again for joining us, Hank, and all of our friends. And we look forward to seeing all of you guys again. Stay warm and have a good night.
Till next time.